We have a lot of content to cover. I think we have nearly 80 screenshots and slides to cover. We will record this for those of you that did not hear this, and we will send it back out to everybody on this call so that you have a copy of it and you can watch it at your leisure in the near future. In the next week is our goal to send this back out to you. So welcome again. My name is Jeff Leach. I work out of the Washington, D.C. office for SiriusXM Marine. Also on the call is Dan Dickerson. And Dan is in the D.C. office as well, part of the Marine and Aviation Group. And then we're also fortunate to have here with us a Navico Pro, Simrad Pro, Mark Henderson. Mark is with Team Liquid Fire. You there with us, Mark?
I am, Jeff. Thank you for having me on. Look forward to being part of this.
Absolutely. So Mark's here as an ambassador and also as somebody who has used this service for years and years and years and knows a lot of the features and functionality of it. So if anybody has any particular questions for Mark, Mark is an avid angler. Team Liquid Fire participates in a lot of tournaments throughout the year. So feel free to chat questions that Mark can answer as well. And Mark will just kind of interject periodically as we go through this. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. What makes SiriusXM Marine different for those of you who are not aware of our service? This is up-to-date graphical weather information that is viewed directly on your display, on your multifunction display. The coverage is complete, about 150 to 200 miles around the United States. If you can see the little blue shaded area, and maybe Dan, you can show your cursor here. That's roughly 150 to 200 miles off the coast is what our satellites cover that area. It's not an app, and this is not available from your computer online. Remember, this is satellite-based service. So fortunately, for those of you who are going offshore or in patchy cellular areas, satellite services are not contingent on cellular networks. So in our area, off of the coast of Maryland, about 6 to 7 miles offshore, you start losing cellular signal. And that's where satellite really comes in very handy.
Okay, so let's get started. First of all, when you are subscribed to SiriusXM, you may want to make sure you're subscribed. If a unit's been turned off over the winter, it's going to need to be sent a refresh signal to wake it up. Or if you're a new subscriber, brand new out of the box, turning this thing on for the first time, you'll need to set up a subscription. So to do that, from your home screen, if you select the Systems button in the upper corner here, this little gear wheel in the upper left-hand corner, it's going to take you to this screen, and you can toggle down to locate your ESN number. And if you toggle down on this column on the side here, you're going to get to this button that says Network, and you're going to see where it says Sirius Status. And you want to click on that. And this is what you need. This is your screen that tells you everything. If you already have a subscription and it's working, it's going to tell you right there front and center. It's also going to give you your signal strength down here to the right. And if you're not activated, it's going to give you that ESN number that I mentioned. That's the number that you call us with to subscribe. Or as I said, if your unit's not working, the first thing we always recommend is sending a refresh. And this website page over here, SiriusXM.com/refresh, you can go to that page and enter in your ID number, and it will automatically send a signal to your unit to get it going if it's forgotten its subscription, so to speak. So we often get questioned about how often our data updates, and the answer is it updates at different rates. The high priority information like storm radar and lightning updates every 2 to 5 minutes. Wind, wave info, observation information, other pieces come in at about every 20 minutes. And then sea surface temp updates every 3 hours. Now, we do resend sea surface temp every 20 minutes. So if you just powered on your unit, you don't have to wait 3 hours to get sea surface temperature. But we are excited about this 3-hour time frame because this is new. Last year it was every 6 hours. And due to some new technology changes, we're able to now broadcast sea surface temperature every 3 hours. The data comes from the folks over at the Weather Channel. We partnered with them to supply us with our weather data. Not all the data comes from them. Of course, they're using data from government sources and other areas, but basically they take all the data and they aggregate it for us, and then we send it up to our satellite and back down to you. So getting back to the home screen, if you're subscribed, everything's right, then you want to click on your chart button right here. That's going to take you where you need to look at SiriusXM information. And this is your normal navigation chart that comes up. And then in the upper right-hand corner, there's a menu button. You want to tap that button and you're going to have this menu come up, and your overlay, the Sirius Weather is an overlay product. So you want to select overlay and select SiriusXM Weather from the list. And then you'll see here, it comes back to the previous screen. It says it's selected, and now you have weather options. So we're going to go into those weather options. So the first option is view. The view and icons, I always like to say, these are your buttons you're going to use the most. So view is going to take you to a lot of the weather layers, the first one being precipitation. And you can see we've checked the box, and now the rain is showing up on screen. We're looking at Cape Cod here, and we can see there was some rain happening. I took this screenshot just about 2 weeks ago. When it comes to looking at rain storm activity, you can also animate the system. So you can see how that system has been moving. If you go to your animate button, you can see we have a choice of current and back as far as 3 hours. So you can see how the rain is moving. And you can also turn on a loop feature and play it so you can see which way, if it's coming towards you or going away from you. It's a nice feature. A lot of people tend to leave it turned on all the time. I don't. I like to keep it on the current slide because when I just glance at the screen, I always want to be looking at the most recent shot of whatever's out there that there was.
Okay, next we're going to talk about sea surface temperatures. So in that same menu drop down that Dan was talking about, we're going to SST colored, sea surface temperature colored. And what we're looking at is a color palette of sea surface temperature. So if you look on the far left-hand bar, you'll see a scale. And the temperature range in this particular scale is 39 degrees all the way up to 99 degrees. So that's a pretty wide swath of temperatures. And probably important for me to say on this call, since we're talking about weather, not specifically about fishing. I know we have anglers on this call as well as cruisers, sailors, etc. Sea surface temperatures are more, important for more people than just anglers. Obviously, anglers like to see where the temp breaks are, to see where the fish are. But cruisers, sailors also want to know where the Gulf Stream is because it impacts, obviously, your cruising. So sea surface temperatures can be important for all. So next screen, we're going to kind of narrow in. So we're going to hit the adjust button. And now we're going to adjust our temperatures. So instead of having 99 degrees to 36 degrees, we're going to adjust these. So we're going to, from the top end, the warmest temperatures, we're going to adjust the top temperatures we want is 78 degrees. And the coolest temperatures, we've got 48 degrees. So see the drastic change on your screen now. You're seeing tons of reds in there. And if Dan goes back over to the legend on the left-hand side, you can see that the temperature range now is between 48 and 78. So this just kind of narrows your temperature and shows up much more clearly on your screen. And of course, where Dan has the cursor right now, the sea surface temperature where the cursor is 76 degrees Fahrenheit. So you can touch anywhere on the screen or move your cursor anywhere in the screen and see exactly what the temperature is in that particular spot.
Jeff, as a fisherman, the adaptability of this and being able to dial in is critical when you're trying to find a bite and trying to find out where possible bait is stacked. And that edge is just so important. We use it quite a bit when offshore trolling and making sure that we can target certain species that we're looking for. So really nice feature. We use it a lot each time that we go out. So critical to success offshore.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Mark. And if anybody has questions specifically about SSTs or anything else from Mark, please chat us.
Just as an example, again, I took this screenshot just a couple of days ago, and that is the Gulf Stream right there, going past the Carolinas and past the mouth of Chesapeake Bay. So you can see we've got 50-degree water over here and 76-degree water, out in the middle of the ocean. thanks to the Gulf Stream. That's this time of year.
All right, the other option with sea surface temperatures is text layer. Pretty self-explanatory, but you turn on, click on text, and you can see the temperatures actually displayed text-based on your screen. All right, let's pause for questions. I think we may have some questions here. Somebody did ask about if you are not a current Navico customer, if you have a Furuno, Raymarine, Garmin, whatever. There are other webinars. SiriusXM.com/marine webinars will get you to our webinar landing page, and you can sign up for another webinar. If not, we will give you contact information where you can reach out to us, and we can send you loads of information on the various services. Any other questions before we move on? I'm not seeing a ton in here. Doesn't look like it. Oh, I see a question. Is there a color palette for precipitation?
There is. It's mentioned in the owner's manual of Navico. You can also, if you click on screen on a particular color, it will give you what we call a DBZ rating, which is how the Weather Service rates the intensity of the rain. So it can't be brought up on screen, but yes, in the owner's manual, there is a cross-reference. And that would be in your MFD manual. So if you have a Simrad Evo 3, it's going to be in the Simrad manual.
Okay. Moving right along, let's talk about wave. This is the next item down, feature down in your list. So if you click on wave and put your cursor in the middle of the screen there, what we're looking at right there is 11 feet wave heights. And this is color coded. Blue would be your smaller waves, all the way up to the color palette of red, which would be extremely high or tall waves. So what we're showing is we're showing multiple items on this particular screen. We're showing in this particular spot that Dan's pointing out right here is 6 foot waves. But so we're showing 9-second intervals of period between waves, and we're also showing the wave direction. So in this particular spot where Dan has the cursor, we're showing the waves that are coming out of the southwest, and 9-second periods between waves. So what we can also do with waves is adjust waves, much like we just did for sea surface temperatures. We want to dial in our waves. So in this particular shot, it's 20 feet, but we have the option of putting our max wave height in. So in this particular screen, we've adjusted our maximum wave height to 10 feet. So let's say your comfort zone ends at 10 feet and you want to see anything that's 10 feet indicated in red as kind of a no-go for you or a cautionary area. 10 feet's the max. Now 10 feet is showing up as red. Of course, the lower wave heights are showing up as blue or the lighter colors. So in this particular scene, just real quick, Dan, going back to that, we're now showing waves that are 9-second period coming out of the southwest.
And Jeff, as a boater, if you're going offshore, understanding and knowing which direction the waves are coming from is critical. That way you could run a trough if necessary. If you have a couple of different inlets like we do in North Carolina, we can choose the direction. If it's a 20-mile separation, it can make a big difference in knowing which way they're coming from for the comfort and safety of your ride and as the captain and with your crew and charter possibly.
Yeah, good points. And the other thing, and I'm sure Dan will get to this in a minute because we're going to talk about wind, is when wind and wave are going opposite directions or competing against each other, just really making a mess out there. Something to pay attention to in advance of a trip offshore.
Yeah, we'll take a look at that in just a minute. First of all, let's look at wind by itself. So we've gone back to the menu and we've turned on our wind box over here. And these are your traditional, what we call wind barbs. Some people call them feathers, but they're giving us 2 pieces of information. They're giving us speed and direction. So the little tick marks, basically one of these little tick marks represents 10 knots and a shorter one in the middle here represents 5 knots. So this is a 15 knot symbol that I'm circling here. Over here, we've got a symbol that's 10 knots, and that's telling us the wind is coming out of the north by the direction that is pointing. Over here, we have symbols where it's indicating the wind is at 20 knots, and it's out of the west-southwest based on the direction the barb is pointing. So that's your wind information. And as we were just discussing, you can overlay both of those pieces of information at the same time. So you can see here, for example, the wind and wave is running relative the same direction. We got winds out of the west and the waves are running from west to east as well at 6-second intervals. The color of the water is representing our wave height. We can see what that is down here by moving the cursor on that spot. It's telling us that those waves right there are 5-footers. And we can see up here, for example, the winds shift around a little bit. They're out of the northwest. So you can see where that will make a difference. The other nice thing here is we can also animate this feature. So if we select the animate button, we have two choices. We have time period and speed. And I mentioned speed earlier when we were looking at the rain information, and I had it set to manual as I do here. But there is also a speed setting of low and high, so you can play this as a loop if you want to see it in sort of slow motion animation. And the way it works is you have these different segments of information that are displayed. So right now we're seeing current information, but as I move it down, just as an example, you can see how it's changing. And I can go back and forth here a little bit just to give you an idea of how this works. So that's how the animation would work. It would just play through the different cycles, although it would play through every segment, 3, 6, 9, and then 12, and so on. But it gives you an idea. Right now, we're looking at the winds are basically out of the west. And then if we look further along, they've shifted up. They've changed speed a little bit. And you'll notice the wave height changes a little bit as well. So we can see tomorrow, one day out, it's going to be a little bit calmer out there. We had 20 knots of wind. Now it's down to 10 knots out of the northwest. So that's how the wind and wave coincide with one another and how they can be animated. The next weather feature is surface features, which is your barometric pressure and your weather front information. So what we're looking at here is the green lines on screen are your isobars. So you can see where there are high or low pressure systems. So this H designates there's a high and there's a low system down here. And then we can see these are weather fronts. This is a cold front that's moving in. This is a trough, which is a smaller front in front of the cold front. And then over here we have a stationary front when it's red and blue combined like that. And then up here we have a warm front. And those can be animated as well. So here we're looking at the current surface pressure conditions. And if I flip ahead to the animate feature, I can see what they're going to be doing one day from now. So you can kind of get an idea of how this high is going to be moving towards the East Coast. So you can kind of see if there's good or bad pressure coming your way. And that usually indicates good or bad weather coming your way. So next, another one of the features on the view setting is cloud tops. Again, these are just clouds. So if you're out looking for a shady spot offshore on a certain day and it's partly cloudy, it's kind of nice to find that shady spot. Typically, I leave the cloud feature turned off because it creates so much clutter on screen. It covers up an awful lot of information at times, especially if you're out there on an overcast day. The last view feature that you have is echo tops. And echo tops is something to just take a look at when there's a lot of storms in the area, because it gives you the higher level clouds and kind of is going to show you where the rain is most likely to pop up next. And that's an advantage that you have with echo tops.
All right, so we're going to pause for questions again, and it looks like there are some questions coming through. Dan, I've got a few for you. And by the way, folks, we are going relatively fast on this. I know it's a lot of information to take in, so please chat, and do know that at your leisure later you can watch this. Dan, if you turn on and off your unit, would you get an updated chart or just the one released in the last 3 hours? Can you answer that question?
If you turn your unit off, when you turn it back on, you won't have any information. It will repopulate as the information comes back in. Some units will keep a little bit in the cache memory, and that varies per model and per brand. But typically, the lightning information updates every 2.5 minutes, so you're not going to wind up waiting very long. the longest you should have to wait from what I call a warm start would be 20 minutes for any of the information.
Great. Here's another one. When the WM4, and by the way, for everybody on the call, we haven't gotten to this yet, but the WM4 is the new Simrad Navico company's weather receiver. It is coming out in a few weeks' time. And the question is, when the WM4 comes out for Simrad, will I be able to remove the WM3 head unit and plug in the W4 head unit into the same cable so I don't have to rerun the cable?
And you won't. The WM4 comes with a new antenna. It utilizes a completely different antenna. So unfortunately, you're going to have to rerun your antenna cables. The network cables are different as well. The plugs don't match. The WM3 actually didn't even have plugs. You couldn't disconnect the cables at the unit. It was a solid run all the way to the back of the plotter into the antenna.
Okay, and the next one, Bruce Gowans, if you wouldn't mind just providing a little more context, how is this data calculated? If you could just be specific about what specific data, maybe there's a feature you were talking about that I may have missed. So if you wouldn't mind just retyping your question and asking us again, and we'll get to that in the next question section. All right, folks, keep the questions coming. We are gonna keep moving forward. All right, so next we're going down to the weather options menu. You can see there's a drop down here. Then we're going to, as Dan mentioned, you have view and icons. We're going to go to icons. Here in icons, our first choice is city forecasts. And you can see these flags with the F on them throughout this screen. In this particular case, this is New Orleans. So if you just clicked on that, it gives you an option to click on the New Orleans forecast, and then it populates this actual forecast for you. Next is lightning. Dan mentioned lightning. You will see lightning strikes. The last 10 to 15 minutes of lightning will appear on your screen if you click on this feature. And of course, always useful to incorporate precipitation, turn on precipitation and lightning simultaneously. This way you'll have much more information about the storm itself.
Jeff, this is such a critical safety feature when you're out on the water. This is something we keep on continuously, and even if it's a pretty day, you want to know what could be to the south or to the north, or if I'm in an east-west coastline, but it's really important to be able to evaluate that on a continuous basis, because these summer storms can pop up at any moment, and we've used it quite a bit and dodged many dangerous storms and been able to go between them because of the accuracy of the data. And sometimes that's the only place that you can go is right between. So it's really nice to have that feature, not only for comfort, but also certainly for your safety.
Yeah, Mark, can you provide a little detail for us? Do you do a split screen? I know you have a couple different Simrad charters or plotters. Do you use one screen dedicated for weather? How do you configure?
Yeah, we've got in our MFDs, Jeff, we use many different ways. My sons are fantastic at using this product, and they'll sometimes go into a quadrant. They'll split it in many different ways. We have 3 different screens on the boat, so we'll use it sometimes depending when we're actually making a run out. We'll put an overlay on one screen that's full screen, so we have a large screen to look at, and it's really good for an old guy like me to be able to see it a lot better. My boys are young, so they have sharp eyes. Old codger like me has a hard time, but there's many different ways in the Simrad units that you can configure that. You can store your pallets and touch it, and it's an immediate action to bring onto the screen. You can set them up to where you don't have to configure anything. It's done on the fly. So really convenient features, and learning to use the product is so important. I tell you, menu and home get you to where you need to be, and it's been very, very beneficial, and done a lot of helped us stay a lot more comfortable, a lot more safe when out on the water.
Great. Yeah, you just raised a point, Mark, that for anybody on this call who's relatively new to SiriusXM weather, or maybe you're a complete and total newbie or just interested in it, it does take a while. There is a learning curve, like anything, but we do have a video library, and we're happy to walk any one of you through any of these screens or the features We really want our customers to understand the service and use it to the best of your abilities. Mark's had a lot of years using this, so it comes as second nature now. But when all of us learn this the first time, it takes a lot. It's a lot to digest. All right. The next feature is observations. So observations show different amounts of data. What you can see there is the flag again. There's an offshore buoy Dan was just pointing to. There's one that's onshore. And if you click on that, it'll pull up an observation. So this particular buoy that Dan just clicked on is showing you exactly the data that that buoy is broadcasting. In this particular case, there's 9 feet of waves there. It's a period of 6 seconds and it's very steep. It also tells you wind information. So, and also tells you water temperature. Just remember, buoys are a great resource for you, but they all broadcast different information. So some may have a lot less than others.
And they broadcast at different times too. It'll give you a timestamp. So this is not a forecast. This is actual what's happening at that buoy at a specific time. So you can go and see what's really happening out there before you get there. So next, the next category we talk about is storm tracks. With that box checked, if there would be any hurricanes or tropical storms in the area, it's going to give you the path similar to what you see on the 6 o'clock news. It's going to show you the path of where the storm came from, give you its current location and information, and then the projected path as well. This is another one of these types of displays where you can click on the symbol and it will give you more information about that piece of information. And as you can see, this is Arthur, the storm that was just through here a couple days ago. There are also other symbols that you can bring up on screen. We call these storm attributes. And these are identifiers of each of small cells within a larger storm system. So this screenshot was taken just off New Orleans, the same picture we were looking at a minute ago. These were smaller cells that were within that big storm system we were looking at where the lightning was. And here we have one that's giving us a symbol for hail and one clouds. And again, you can click on one of these and you can dive deeper into the information about that particular cell. An interesting note here, the cloud top height, the higher the tops, the worse the cell, the more severe it is. So it's something that you might want to keep an eye on. And this is one of those things, it's part of a learning curve. You start to look at it and you click on those little symbols and you'll see one that's at 3,000 feet and that's just a little cloud burst, but you get one of these that's way up in the upper atmosphere, you know it's going to be a humdinger and you're going to steer clear of that one. So the next item on the sidebar menu under icons is watch boxes. And this is a watch box. This is similar, you sometimes hear the broadcast that comes out on your marine radio that says there's something bad happening in a specific area. Well, what we do is we draw a line around the area where something bad is happening. There's a symbol you can click on, it'll tell you there's a thunderstorm and well, look, here's what's really going on in that area. So this is something you might want to be careful of and stay away from that area.
Okay, we pause for questions again. And Bruce, thank you for clarifying. Dan, Bruce's question was, how is the data calculated, specifically SST and wave height? And we can, and if needed to get more technical, I'm not sure how technical Bruce wants, but we can get some of these details from TWC, the Weather Channel, if needed, or you can answer it now, Dan. It's up to you.
Right. So I'll give you the overview answer is the sea surface temperature is gathered from infrared satellite. So it is able to pick up the surface temperature from satellite. There are, however, if you're looking at the observation stations that we were just at, that was actual sea surface temperature that was at that location. So you have 2 different sources you can use and you can check for accuracy. I do that quite often. I'll go look at what we're saying it is and then go look at a nearby buoy and see if we're close. And usually we are pretty close. Regarding the wave height information, where we were looking at the color on screen showing the wave height, that was a forecast that was done by the folks at the Weather Channel. So it's not really actually what it is. You know, we hope it's going to be as close as possible, but it is a forecast. Even the one that says current conditions, that's the current forecasted height of what we thought it was going to be. And here again, this is where observation stations are so critical, because you can go look at those. That's real-time information coming in off the buoys. So it's best to use both pieces of information in combination with each other.
Yep. And I would just say as well, Bruce, and we'll show you this in a minute, and for everybody else in the call, we also have marine zones. So you're going to see several different ways to gather data out there. Okay, I think that was it, Dan.
Yeah, the person asking the question about the dialog box in the lower left corner, I'm going to refer you to our tech support team for that one, and we'll need to know exactly what model MFD you have. It might be a setting that's not turned on, but we can certainly look that up for you, and we'll give you the address at the end of the seminar. But it's basically marine.support@SiriusXM.com, and we'll mention that later on in the seminar as well. We can probably figure that out for you.
Okay.
So moving on, the next thing, so I've gone back to the main menu here where it's giving me my weather options. Again, we're going to go back to the weather options menu, and we've looked at view and icons. Now there's a quick one here, local weather. If you just want to glance, kind of overview what's going on, maybe you're planning on going fishing tomorrow, you can put the cursor on a location, and it's going to bring up the weather report from the locust's largest weather reporting facility. In this case, it was Virginia Beach. So it's giving me the next couple days of forecast for Virginia Beach. So that's the local weather option. Next, we're going to talk about marine zones. And you've heard me mention before about information coming on the VHF radio. Well, the weather forecast that you listen to on the VHF radio is called a marine zone report. And all the U.S. waters are divided up into marine zones. So you can go to the marine zone section and click on this show zones box, and you can see how the whole map changes, becomes a very crude overlay of the coastline, and it's all sliced up into these little pieces. When you click on one, it's going to create a shaded area, and then you can say, read this particular area. And so it's going to give you the weather report for that area. So that's the information for that zone. So you can click on the zone where you are or where you're headed and get the information, the forecast coming from the Weather Service for that exact area. You don't have to listen to that garbled computer voice on the VHF to get it. You can read it. It's much easier. I don't know about you, but oftentimes I've been listening to that forecast and they talk about area after area after area, and invariably I get distracted when they're going to talk about my area, and I got to wait another 20 minutes for them to come back around and listen to it. I don't have to do that anymore. I can just click on screen and read it. Now, it is important once you've read it, you have to click that back button to get back to your normal chart again. So if you're looking at that crude map and going, where's my weather information? You got to remember to hit that back button when you're done. Tropical statements, here again, another very simple thing. Just click on it. Going to give you the overview discussion for, you know, major things that are going on the East Coast and West Coast. And lastly, transparency. When you're looking at weather overlaid on your chart, it can kind of block out everything else. So Simrad and Lowrance, B&G give you the option of adjusting your transparency. Here it's set to minimum, and you can see that that storm system zoomed in looks very, very crude and covers up a lot of stuff. So you can adjust the transparency. So now I can see underneath where the coastline is. So that's why your transparency, I typically leave mine on about 4 or 5 all the time. And for the question asking about the intensity of the rain, you can see right here where I have the cursor, it's on kind of a light green area, and down here it is identifying what type of rain that is. So that relates back to that earlier question about intensity of rain.
Okay, so just put it out there. I know Dan just mentioned this a few minutes ago, but if anybody does have specific questions that they want answered offline about your weather or about your SiriusXM radio on your boat or something technical, please feel free to email us, marine.support@SiriusXM.com. I did see at least one other question come in, Dan, and here it is from Thomas. When you click on the marine zone, does it keep that same location in your machine? I keep getting weather alerts for locations far away from New Jersey.
Yeah, so that's two different things going on. The alerts is in the master settings menu of your device, and you can set up the distance range on the alerts feature. It's probably set to the factory default, which is like 500 miles, which is why you're getting alerts for an area that are not in your area. The marine zone setting will typically, you have two choices. Here it says use highlighted, and that's what it's going to do. The other option it would be is it will just use your current location and give you the location of, it'll come up with the area selected that is the location where you are.
Okay, I think that that's all the questions. Keep the questions coming, by the way. We do have one more pause before we end with questions. So if anybody has any unanswered questions, please chat them in the next couple minutes and we'll get to them. All right, we'd be remiss if we didn't introduce our new service for those of you who are offshore anglers. This is our highest tier of service. It is called fish mapping, and we call it a superset. It includes all of offshore weather, so all the features we just talked about, as well as 8 specific fishing layers to help put you on the bite. And we're going to talk from the top down just quickly. Sea surface height anomaly, that's your upwellings and your downwellings. We've partnered with an oceanographic group, by the way, and they provide weekly fishing recommendations, twice a week actually. You can see sea surface temperatures 30 meters down or 100 feet beneath the surface. We'll show you where prominent weed lines are, where sea surface temperature contours, plankton contours, and then sea surface temperature front strengths and plankton front strengths. So we do have, for any of you who are interested in our fish mapping service, Dan and I are delivering a webinar this Thursday on fish mapping specifically for Simrad customers. So feel free to join us. And again, that path is SiriusXM.com/marine webinars. SiriusXM.com/marine webinars, and that's where you'd sign up for this webinar, or any others for that matter. Okay, the equipment required. Navico, as I mentioned previously, is up to the WM4. The WM4 will be available at the end of May or early June. It will require a software update when you buy the WM4 to update and be compatible. And then we have a whole list of compatible chart plotters that are compatible with the Navico WM4 weather receiver. Those are listed on our website, or you can find those on the Simrad or Lowrance or B&G websites as well. The equipment, the WM4 currently is listed for $449. SiriusXM, even though we are not an electronics company, electronics provider, hardware provider, we are kicking in a $100 rebate. So as soon as you sign up for the service, you can go to our rebate site, which is SiriusXM.com/marine rebate, and apply for the rebates. Fairly simple. Quite a few people do this, and we'll send you a $100 Visa gift card. Why not put an extra $100 back in your pocket? And then as far as service offerings for you guys, there's a 2-month trial of our coastal tier of service. And you can certainly sign up for the 2-month trial at SiriusXM.com/webinar. It'll give you all the details you need to call in and sign up for that trial.
And of course, we can't leave without talking about what makes SiriusXM great, and that's SiriusXM Radio. All Navico, Simrad, Lowrance, B&G receivers are capable of receiving both the weather service and SiriusXM audio, over 140 channels of commercial-free music, and lots more. It's very easy to set up to use on the weather device. You simply need a stereo. It doesn't have to be a SiriusXM ready stereo. Just needs to have auxiliary input, because the SiriusXM receiver, weather receiver, has an audio output, and that goes into audio, and then the audio display will show up on your multifunction display just like you see it here. You'll be able to adjust volume, change channels, everything right from your multifunction display screen. So pricing, the Simrad products have currently 3 weather option packages available, with a 4th one soon to be available. The inland tier, coastal, and offshore. Inland's very basic, designed exactly like it's named for basically people running inland lakes and rivers. Going to give you no sea surface temperature information, just wind and storm information, basically. And then coastal gives you all the weather we have to offer for our entire coverage area. The only reason it's called coastal is because it only gives you current information. It doesn't give you forecast. We figure somebody running the coast doesn't need to see what's going to be doing tomorrow. They want to know what's happening now. And also on the coastal package, we do give you some sea surface temperature information out to 20 nautical miles. So if you're just staying close to shoreline, coastal is going to do the job for 35 bucks a month. And if you're an offshore fisherman, you're going to want the offshore package. Or if you're running down the coast, say you're running Maine in the summertime and Florida in the winter, you're probably going to want the offshore package. And the fish mapping package, which includes everything that's in the other 3 packages, plus the fishing information at $100 a month. Also an important note here, you can change back and forth between packages. There's no penalty to do that. So if you're fishing coastal, in the spring, you could start out at the $35 package. And if you're only going offshore 2 months out of the year, then only buy the offshore package for those 2 months. And you can add audio to any of those packages. There are 2 most popular entertainment packages at $12 a month and $17 a month. And then lastly, you can suspend your service. We don't want you paying for it if you're not using it. So if you put the boat on the hard for the winter, call us up and ask to suspend your service. And we're going to stop your billing right there and then restart it automatically in the spring on whatever date you told us to start it on when you suspended it back in the fall.
Jeff and Dan, that's one thing that I get a lot of questions on when we're doing, seminars or fishing schools and that kind of activity. We have a lot of people ask us about the service and wonder if they can suspend it when maybe it's out of season. And yeah, it's important to them, and that's a very nice option that Sirius has provided. Just turn it back on when you need it. And I got to tell you, this is an expensive sport, an expensive hobby that we're all involved in. And for 99 bucks a month, it'll save you a lot of money. If you're a fisher person who goes out looking for fish, it'll help you dial it in. You don't have to spend a whole lot of fuel, not a whole lot of running around, a lot more comfort. And I got to tell you, the only thing about the entertainment package is my boys get mad at me when I turn on the 60s and 70s channels.
All right, so it's easy to get started. All you need to do is get the equipment on the boat, pick which package you want to use, and then call us or go online, SiriusXM.com/marineactivate, and you can set up your subscription right there.
Okay, as far as resources, there are several resources. I think I mentioned this previously, but our main website is SiriusXM.com/marine. We also have a video library, and we archive videos based on the kind of plotter you have, or just generally under the fishing category. So feel free to join this site. It's a helpful resource, SiriusXM.com/marine library. And then we post the vast majority of our videos on our YouTube channel. And Dan and I have created numerous videos feature specific. So if you're like me and you're relatively impatient and you just want to get the heads up on how to use marine zones or some other feature, you can search on youtube.com/SiriusXM Marine. Also follow us. We have a decent amount of followers. We're growing every day, and we'd love your support on social media and to interact with you. Facebook.com/SiriusXM Marine, or at Instagram @Instagram_Marine. All right, I think we already mentioned this, but if your questions did not get answered, if you have a very specific, maybe you have a technical question or something specific about your unit, SiriusXM Marine does have a help support site, and that email is marine.support@SiriusXM.com. Simrad also has tech support. If you're having a problem with your Simrad displays or maybe your weather receiver and you have specific Simrad related questions, that's simrad.tech@navico.com. Otherwise, just to reiterate the subscribe number below, please call this specific number and don't just call the general SiriusXM number. You will be very disappointed if you just call the general SiriusXM radio number and they don't know even what a boat is. In some particular cases, if they can't redirect you. So 855-796-9847 will get you to our marine subscription based agents. All right, let's see if we have any other questions here. I think we had one more going back. Let's see. Eugene, to answer your question about webinars, Garmin webinars, and anybody else on this call who is interested in Garmin or any other plotter webinars, feel free to reach out to us at marine.support@SiriusXM.com, and we will send you links to those videos if needed. We will have those posted on our YouTube page as well fairly soon. And Andy, you had a question specifically about your Lowrance HDS Gen 2 system. We should have all the compatibility charts on our website. They also have them on the Lowrance website. But again, if you can't find those or just need additional support, marine.support@SiriusXM.com. Dan, there was one question I think we may have missed or came in after our last question section about specific marines on marine zones. So Rebecca says, I often get a message when I click on a specific zone that says information not available for that zone. Is that common?
Well, it shouldn't be. We've had some issues with the marine zone. The government server that's supplying us with that information has had a few hiccups, especially as of late, I've noticed. So no, it shouldn't do that. But we're working on that, trying to fix that issue.
Excellent. Dan and I will stand by on this call for anybody who wants to continue to chat with us and ask specific questions. Otherwise, please connect with us at marine.support@SiriusXM.com. We thank everybody on this call for joining us. Hope all go off well. Hope everybody enjoys using our service. And again, we will remain here for the next few minutes to answer specific questions as you have them. And otherwise, everybody have a great night and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I can think of one other thing going back to that marine zone question. Anybody who has an older unit out there, if they have an old LWX1 running on a Lowrance system, the marine zones might not be working. That's for a different reason. That's because NOAA renumbered the zones a while back, and it might require a software update if the update is available for your older MFDs. Again, that would be something if you would forward your issue to marine.support@SiriusXM.com. We'll dig into it for you and see if there's an update available.
Here's a question for you, Dan. What's the difference between the WM3 and the WM4?
So the difference is basically the manufacturer. We decided to intervene on Simrad's behalf and build a weather receiver for them using our suppliers, and we were able to cut out the middleman and lower the cost of the hardware. WM3 used to sell for $799, and now we're down at $449 because we've cut out a middleman. That's the main difference between the two, is the price. Secondly, the WM4 has expansion capability that the WM3 did not. WM3 will not be able to accept our fish mapping package and all of our fishing layers as they become available. And we also have some new weather stuff that we're working on down the road that the WM4 will have capability once we bring it to market.
All right, I'm just going to scroll up quickly. If anybody else has any other questions, please chat them now. I'm going to take one last look just to see if we missed anything here, Dan and Mark. I think we covered it all. Yeah, I think we're good. Mark, thanks so much for joining us. And everybody, thank you for joining this call this evening. Thank you, be well, and please stay in touch. All right, all. Have a great night.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Mark.